Ever since I was a little kid, I've had dreams of making movies. And occasionally it's useful to remind myself that sometimes making movies can really suck. Case in point, The Thief and the Cobbler. This is the film which has the longest production time in history. 31 years between conception and release. It was made by Richard Williams, who is an incredible perfectionist, and spent most of that time making sure every bit of animation was absolutely right, because his goal in this film was not just to tell a good story, but to prove that animation was an art form in its own right and push that art possibility further than it had ever gone before. And he did succeed in that in a roundabout way, because eventually his distributors got tired of him taking so long and took all control of the project away from him. And it was released under the titles of both The Princess and the Cobbler and Arabian Night, both of which were severely compromised forms which did not adhere to his vision at all, and were only playing things up for little kids with a bunch of songs added and voices where none had existed before, because they apparently thought that kids wouldn't sit still for just cool animation. I can personally say that I definitely loved just watching animation when I was a kid, so I don't know where they're coming from with that. But thankfully, there is one fan who was able to get his hands on some concept art and a work print of the original film, which was colorized at some places and others not. But he was able to combine it with some footage from the releases of these two films, versions of Williams' vision, to create what is called The Thief and the Cobbler, the Recobbled Cut, which is available for free online. So there is absolutely no reason to not see this movie. And it is definitely worth watching. The things that Richard Williams was able to pull off in the 60s and 70s and 80s with no computer graphics to help him just is impossible to believe sometimes. I mean, this story is nothing really to write home about, but it does work. It's a basic Arabian Nights type movie with the humble title character of the cobbler meeting a princess and going on an adventure, proving his love for her, all that. But what really makes it stand out is the artwork, which was the primary way, the primary reason for making the movie in the first place, after all. And actually, I think the whole climax of the film, in which the cobbler destroys a villainous war machine with just one tack in this very Rube Goldberg type sequence, while the thief of the title is inside the machine and is just wandering around, miraculously surviving it collapsing around him, is, considering the time it was made and the resources that were at hand, the greatest piece of animation ever made. I'm dead serious about that. Just watch that sequence alone and you will be astonished. And I wish there was some way to get even this sequence alone released in IMAX theaters, because it would be one of the highlights of my movie-going life. One other thing I have to point out is, I talked a little about Avatar in a previous video, and I've since had people, both online and in real life, telling me that I should give that movie a break because it was only made to introduce new special effects technology and not so much for the story. Well, now I can point to The Thief and the Cobbler, because it's another movie that was made primarily for the artwork of it all, and it still tells a good story that you can enjoy with your brain turned on. So, that is possible. That's really all I have to say about that, because I'm probably sounding a bit like an asshole dragging this in, but I really have to get it off my chest sometimes. I'm including a link to the free YouTube account playlist where The Thief and the Cobbler, the Recobbled Cut, can be viewed. And the same guy who put it together also has The Princess and the Cobbler and the Arabian Night cuts up on his account as well, just in case you're curious. And I will be doing a review on the Agony Booth of Arabian Night, just because it is such a butchering of one of the great animated movies ever made. Please, check this out. Do yourself a favor. There is absolutely no reason not to see it. It's free. There's no guilt involved because Richard Williams himself doesn't even want to talk about the movie anymore. Who can blame him? But definitely, this one is worth it.